Welcome to Therapist Off Script, a podcast designed with therapist in mind as we discuss all things psychotherapy practice, the good, the bad, and the truly mind-blowing adventures of being a therapist in process. Hang on as we dive deep, join together, and empower others for the journey of a lifetime.
Because of one of the sites that I'm at, since it is private practice model, even though we're contracted with a VA as well, we do get a lot of private pay clients. And so there's conversation and push for us to, market ourselves. And I know there are certain things that are helpful and some of the things are free, some of the things are not free. But yeah, I feel like that would be a good next conversation for us to have, since that's what we do.
Yeah. I was wondering what the kind of the trigger was for you introducing the topic possibility.
I'm going to take that as a sign from the universe.
Yeah. And then I had a colleague reach out and asking how to market. And I was like, did you talk to so-and-so? And you were like, no. And I was like,
it's not about that.
The universe. Yeah. And then just recently, I'm no longer with those places anymore, which I think I say every podcast. I'm so grateful that I'm no longer with those places anymore.
You got it, flaunt it.
I know. I'm not trying to overly brag or I filled up my caseload in a week and a half. So, I mean, there's just different strategies. And if I can what's the word I'm looking for? Good happens in ripples. So if I can pay that forward and spread the information and the ripple effect happens, and if it can benefit you and others, then, let's talk about it and see if we can brainstorm some ways, and hopefully it'll be helpful to others. So yeah, I love that. So yeah, let's make the podcast episode 11 on all things marketing. And yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
Welcome to Therapist Off Script. We are two therapists, Jen and
Alyx, in the mental health and wellness space, coming together from different points in our profession
to unlock the world of healing arts and all that it holds of being a psychotherapist in practice,
regardless of where we are in the process.
While we are therapists, this podcast is not meant to be therapy or supervision. Should we mention clients, we are committed to safeguarding our client confidentiality.
Please know that information presented here is intentionally de-identified, with details changed and are often a representation of common challenges we've witnessed within the struggles of life and simply being a human.
Come spend time with us as we show up as unapologetically us. We are Therapist Off Script.
So I think what I would like to start with, if you're okay with it, is how did you fill up your practice in a week and a half, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what do you use, or what do you feel like worked for you?
Yeah, I have a variety of things. So I think doing it so what works for me, what I will say may not work for others. The core thing is find what authentically and what organically works for you, so that you're able to show up as your authentic self, because that is what's going to bring in the most clients for you as an individual provider. And what works for you may not work for me. What works for me may not work for another. And so pick and choose from what I share. The setting has a lot to do with it. And so private practice versus nonprofit. So for example, a nonprofit may have contracts and the clients are provided to them through that contract. Community mental health, the clients may come to them, be filtered through them through Medi-Cal or IEHP or something to that effect. If you're in private practice, which is associates and above, trainees cannot be in a private practice, then it may be the practice, and this is something you want to ask while you're interviewing, is Do you provide the clients, or are we expected to market for ourselves, or a combination of this? Because the private practice could also have insurance, because some associates can see insurance-based clients, and that's a whole other episode with like incident billing, out-of-network billing, advisory billing, like synonymous words, right? So you want to say if they take insurance-based clients, or if they're fully self-pay, or it could be known as private pay, where clients pay cash for sessions, and then the insurance is no longer, or is not even in it. So there's different factors that could come to play too. So if you're in a practice that has insurance, marketing is pretty much done for you. Of course, if you want to draw in your ideal clients within like your niche areas, then there may be some marketing that you want to do to ensure that you're casting the net to be able to, like one time I heard someone, not one time, more than one time, people say, because I'm kind of shifting topics, my ADHD brain, but similar topic. People say when they become a therapist, is like, I didn't realize that I had to market. They will say, I don't like selling myself, right? And so what I would encourage is a reframe of, you're not selling yourself in air quotations. You are marketing the skills as you as a professional, a provider of mental health, that gets the word out that this is who you are as a therapist. And it allows clients to be able to find you more easily, right? And so it would be like, so that they can get the support and the help that they need, because if your voice is not out there, however you choose to get your voice out there through marketing, then the clients are not going to find you, because there is a ton of providers and they have to filter through a variety of ways to get to you. So we have the different settings. We have insurance versus self-pay. That's where my thought is. I caught it again. So self-pay or private pay, that is definitely an area where you're going to have to be able to market. So for any of my supervisees, for example, I will provide them with referrals, but I also will teach them the marketing and business skills, because at the end, when they're getting licensed, they can choose, do you want to stay with me, or do you want to branch out on your own? Usually when you're just becoming licensed, you want to stay, and this isn't for everyone, because a lot of people just go straight into private practice. I was someone who went straight into private practice. Like my practice has been in existence as long as I have been licensed, because I knew I wanted to have a private practice. And I think you're similar. Is that accurate? You just know, like, I want to get it. Even if I was working with someone else, I still had my private practice at least part-time since I've been licensed. And so I'll teach my supervisees how to have a business, what to do from the ground up, which includes marketing and business skills. Marketing, right? As I said in the beginning, you want to choose the methods that are going to be most organic for you. And so let me shift over to you with marketing, and then we'll come back. So marketing, what are those things that first come to mind if you were to be able to market yourself as a therapist?
I mean, the big thing that I currently have is my website that I put a lot of work into, and I had a Psychology Today profile, but then due to money issues, I had to cancel the subscription. But I know that that is a big part, or a big source of referrals. I know there's a game, like you have to like update it, even if you're like at a space or something, like just to keep yourself relevant on it. So I'm close to getting to the point where I'm able to get that back. I have therapy done as well, because it's free, but I haven't gotten anything from, I mean, I didn't get anything from Psychology Today either when I had it for the 3 months maybe. So that was why I was like, you know what, whatever, I'm not in the position to be paying for something that's not working for me, even though maybe it does just take more time. I don't know. So that was, there's a catch-22, right? Like that's the money mindset. It's a catch-22. Yeah. I can't afford to pay for the things that would get me clients, so that I can't afford to pay for those things.
It is a catch-22.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at. But yeah, like the website, Psychology Today, or other referral sources, also networking like with other clinicians, trying to think what else that jumps out at me as far as what I know currently as an associate. I mean, there's other websites I think that I have to be licensed for in order to be able to use, like similar to Psychology Today and Therapy Den. being an associate also kind of limits me, but I realize there are ways around that. Yeah, that's what jumps out at me.
Yeah. One of the websites of the directories, there's a variety of directories, multitude of directories, I should say. Therapy Den, very good. From my perspective and experience, it was created with good intent. So that's wonderful. It has like a good value system from what I've learned about it. I'm also on Therapy Den. Good Therapy is one of the directories where you have to be licensed. The good thing about Good Therapy is you get CEUs or continuing education units as part of your plan or your subscription. There's, I think it's Inclusive Therapist is another one. There is Mental Health Match, I think is what it's called, is another one. There's like Online Therapist. So you can just type in like psychotherapy /directory or get clients. And then there's like a whole bunch of different ones that pop up, but those are like the first ones. I'm not on Psychology Today. I am on Good Therapy. What works, and again, what works for you or me may not work for others. So like when you were on Psychology Today, you noticed you weren't getting any bites. And that,
but I also don't get any bites from Therapy Den or my website. I don't think. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, honestly.
okay, well, hopefully something today, it'll be like a light bulb. There is, so one thing when you were talking that came to mind is a STEEPLE business analysis. Have you ever heard of that? And there's one called PESTEL. So, but I use STEEPLE. And so basically it's having your finger on the pulse of society. And so political happenings, not that you necessarily want to take a stance, you want to stay unbiased within it. Economic things that are happening, social things that are happening, technological. I'm doing a cheat sheet right now. I Googled it as we were talking. Technological, environmental, legal, and ethical. So it's like the hot topics. So for example, something in society happens and you're noticing a lot of generation that's happening. So first thing I think of is like The Last of Us. Right. And so with The Last of Us, there was like a Saturday Night Live skit of Mario, right? And it was like funny and relevant. And I mean, this is like just like a side topic. It's funny and relevant, and society started to like latch onto it and it became a hook, right? And so if we can do that with very relevant topics, like, well, first political thing that comes to mind is like Roe v. Wade, but that would be a very like hot topic to not take a side on. And as therapists within our ethical code, we stay unbiased. Even if we have our personal opinions, we support the client from where it's at. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about therapists being able to outreach to marketing effects. And so if you're able to market with like a hot topic, okay, here's one: New Year's resolutions, right? That might be a topic where like we're heading into the new year, which we're not. We're now sitting in February. We're almost at Valentine's Day at this point. And this is where a lot of the New Year's resolutions that people pledged they were going to do this year in 2023, we're now sitting almost in the middle of February. How many of those people have fallen off and not did the resolutions? Like, do they even remember the resolutions that they thought that they were going to do in 2023? That's because in New Year's resolutions, we're trying to do like a highly motivated, like, I'm going to get organized this year, as an example. Okay, we're in our darkest season as the new year turns. Energy levels are low. We've got people with seasonal affective disorder, which can be stuff that we're targeting in marketing, right? We have just like in the cold of the winter, we want to isolate. We're not necessarily going to be like social gathering. And so we could be targeting isolation and loneliness during that time. So it's like the ebbs and flows of society tied into the current happenings, hot topics. So like having our finger on the pulse.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when we're
posting, update your profiles and stuff accordingly, like what you, like a niche essentially.
Yeah.
But that niche can change according to what's happening.
Yep, absolutely. And so also within marketing, so you could be tapping into YouTube, which we're on YouTube. You could be tapping into TikTok, which I have not gotten into yet, but a lot of therapists. What's that?
I'm working on that.
Yeah, a lot of therapists have begun having success with TikTok, but you have to have good judgment within it. Like there was a therapist who did a skit with what was it called? Trauma dumping. And that person got blown up for it, right? So you have to have good judgment, even though you're on social media. Instagram, what else? Facebook sometimes. There's groups that, okay, so networking, you talked about networking. So there's groups of therapists on Facebook. And of course, you don't want to like post any PHI on there. You want to be very like careful with your client's information. That's not what we're just going to get support and to network with fellow therapists, right? So some therapists will start Facebook groups and then they have fellow therapists and then they grow a network, a community, and then you exchange referrals, right? Like I am constantly giving referrals away that are not good match clients for me because pay it forward and then they give me clients back. And it's a really good exchange, because that's another thing. People will have like a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset. When you're able to shift into the abundance mindset, there is a plethora of clients to go around. Like I don't know that I've, knock on wood, ever had a time period where I haven't had clients. So that's because it's like, I'm not going to just take clients. I tell the clients when I'm on the phone with them, having a good match therapist is so vitally important to the path of your mental health that if after our conversation, if either of us feel that we're not a good match, I will make a referral to someone who may be a better match, right? Because I have a network of therapists that I've been able to like grow, which would be probably one of my main things that I would say. And that could be like in-person networking, or it could be online networking. So what are your thoughts?
Well, you know my number.
I do know your number, but somehow I lost the information that you were doing private pay clients. So when you told me that, I was like, oh yeah, I guess you are my referral sources and referral, like, provisions. So yeah, I do have your number. So podcast is another thing. So if you feel confident enough, I know early in therapist careers, sometimes the imposter, well, actually not just early in, like all throughout, it can be imposter syndrome or imposter phenomena can take place. So just being able to get through that and just start recording and being your authentic, unapologetically self, which is one of our keys here. So podcast, if you're able to do that, blogging, if you feel more comfortable writing about certain topics and getting the information out there. Bio. So on Psychology Today, some people will like post, or Therapy Den or Good Therapy, whatever. If they notice that they're not getting bites with their bio or how they're speaking to the ideal client, which I'll break down in a second, then maybe shift it a little bit, tinker with it. But don't do it so much that you're not tracking the response, right? So you'll tinker with it a little bit and then pay attention what happens.
It's like an experiment. If you have too many variables, right? You keep everything else the same except for what you're testing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So ideal client avatars. So as you go through like your trainee, your associate, your licensed, even beyond licensure, like sometimes you're trying on different clients to see if like that's your ideal client. And then eventually you get to a point where it's like, okay, like this is the clients that like I do my best work with, that I am fueled by, that I become in my genius zone, that I wake up with, like, right? It doesn't mean all your clients are going to be ideal, but that is the client avatar that you want to be speaking to in your bio. What are their pain points? What does their difficulties look like? So it's like you're painting a picture or telling a story, and the client, for them to be seen and heard, because when they read your bio, they go, this person gets me, right? And it's like a hook. So like you're casting a net and the clients like are finding you because you're speaking directly to them, like, wow, this person gets me and I haven't even met them. So essentially they're meeting you before they're meeting you, right? And that could be through videos, it could be through writing, any of that. Usually it takes repeated exposure. If the client's not just logging on to Psychology Today and reading the profiles, if you don't capture them within the first couple lines, they're going to skip to the next profile, right? And then you want to also provide call of actions and like next steps. So it's like, here, I found the therapist that I really love, but then the therapist doesn't have like how to contact them.
Oh,
So,
shoot.
it's like moving on, because you have them for that moment in time. You want to make sure you're doing calls of action and how they can get a hold of you. What are the next step? What does therapy look like with you? What is your approach, without a lot of clinical jargon, unless that's your style, Okay, there is a difference, and I give full credit to Audrey Shane, who is with Balanced Practice Community, which is a Facebook group. I love her post. Like right before we logged on, like I literally wrote that to her. I love her post because she was talking about networking and building community. And I was like, that's so beautiful. She's one that good happens in ripples. So yeah, so kudos to Audrey. But what I want to talk about with her is not with her, but the influence or the inspiration that she gave me is months and months and months ago, like probably a year ago, she had posted this thing about what an ideal client versus a niche is. And before that time, I was bringing those two things together. I didn't see the differentiation. And so she was able to break that apart for me just from a simple post. And so I thought that was really good.
What is the difference?
A niche is what your focus is. An ideal client is who is that person in front of you? How do they show up in life? What do the rhythms of their day-to-day life look like? And so that's really good. And then there was another layer that she, like probably last month and a half ago, I actually wrote her back and I was like, wow, I'm going to use that in supervision with my supervisees. So she expanded on it with, it's more about the niche, as far as it's beyond the niche, because your ideal client has to fit within your schedule. The fees, the personality was another thing, in person versus virtual. So that these are all different factors that will contribute, which is really in our like first consult call with the client, like when we're calling to like introduce ourselves, to give like the basics, to discuss our fees. So all of that stuff can be worked into that first phone call. So yeah, and then at the end of it, you can either say, after speaking with you, it sounds like you would be more of a fit for, and you can refer to a colleague. If that person, like, it could just be like the schedules don't line up and you don't want to like make unnecessary accommodations because resentment can show up when that client starts canceling. So if you're like, you normally get done at 6, and for this client, you made the exception and you stayed till 7, and then an hour before the session, they cancel. So, so you have to, what the therapist sets their different factors, and the clients fit into that. So otherwise, a lot of difficulty can happen. So, all right. So I've been talking a while. So what are your thoughts? And let's expand a little bit.
That's a lot, but it's one of those, and I think this is one of those topics that you kind of have to be exposed to multiple times as well, just because there's so much. I really like the separation between niche and ideal client, because I don't know, I can see why you lumped them together, because they are like, it all comes down to like, what's a good client fit for you. Mm-hmm. But there's like two different things that you should be targeting, the what and the who. Mm-hmm. Because if I have a niche of, I don't know, that's my problem. I'm just like, okay, now how do I actually communicate what my niche and ideal client is? Mm-hmm. I don't know, because especially like right now, because I'm an associate and I just always have the mindset of, I want as much experience as possible, all sorts of different things. But like, I don't know. Yeah, there's can I survive being a generalist, or do I have to have a niche? Like there's two different perspectives, it sounds like. And if I'm too specific, then I'm not going to get anybody that fits in that specific niche. But then if I'm too general, then I'm just going to be in a pool of however many other people that have the same like buzzwords. So how do you balance that? Is my next question.
Yeah. And I think so associates are like, they're trying on different things. So at that point, you do become more of a generalist. And then I'm speaking in like big terms, and not big terms, but like very broad terms, right? This may be differing for other people, but you're trying on different clients, deciding what client fits best with you. It's a matching of the client needs and the therapist skill set, right? And as an associate, you're developing your skill set. So generally, associates are more generalist. Unless you like are working with like an eating disorder program, then you become more of a specialist within that, right? And so there's no one size fits all answer within it. So that's another factor also is, are you a generalist or are you a specialist? So that's a whole other factor too. So I like the differentiation of, I say niche and you say niche, right? So you caught that, right? So I say niche. I like the differentiation between the two though, of ideal client and niche, because for me, my perspective, and I just made this awareness as we're talking, is it sees the person as a human and not a number, right? Because we could be very pathologizing, like I treat anxiety, I treat depression, I treat life transitions, or whatever that may be. But having that ideal client add on, it sees the person as a person and it humanizes the person. It's like, I treat working moms who have the extra dose of stress. This is not my niche, by the way. Extra dose of stress and hold mom guilt every time they have to go to work. That's a very like specialized area, right? And that's a ideal client avatar you could be talking to, right? Versus I just treat anxiety, but it sees the person beyond their pathologizing whatever disorder they have, right? And so I really love the differentiation. That's probably why it spoke to me on a deeper level. It's like, who is this person in their day-to-day life? Where do their struggle points show up? That's what we're targeting. So, yeah.
So what's an example of one that involves, let's say, trauma? Yeah, trauma and life transitions, because those are other, like, besides depression and anxiety, are big, especially COVID time.
Okay. So we can do, so I actually do have some different examples. So like one that I had actually written was, my primary niche is stuck in the vortex of spiraling anxiety. So you can alter that with traumas. Like, do you have, so this is in a form of a question. It's like, you try your best every day, but within the difficulty of maintaining concentration, you find that trauma or past history is repeating over and over again on a loop in your mind. And so that you have difficulty moving forward in life and getting the most of it. So that would be an example of trauma. You have to know the symptoms of the different disorders also to really speak to them, right? And so my primary niche is stuck in the vortex of spiraling anxiety. This is an example. And or anyone looking to level up within living their best life and needs a fellow traveler to engage in the path. My ideal client is a deep thinker, rebel-minded, outside of the box thinking, love of learning, knowledge absorber, has humor with a side of healthy sarcasm, not afraid to get a little woo-woo, authentic human who is striving to live optimally. My clients tend to be authors, creatives, individuals within the LGBTQIA+ community, entrepreneurs, and witchy types who love tarot. That is so, like, I fine-tuned it since then. I even writ like a new bio today on one of my directories. So it's an ever-evolving process, and you don't want to change it too much, but you want to change it just enough. So so the very first question you asked, I would attribute me being able to fill up my practice, because me transitioning from the practices I was working at to being fully in my solo, which had converted to group in October. I'm on insurance panels. I also do self-pay. I do Instagram. And then we have our thing that's going on. I've had And so that I'm not just identifying one person, because really I've had people sit in front of me and say, I saw you on Instagram, which is like my Storm Haven Counseling Wellness, or Storm Haven Wellness, I think it is on Instagram. And yeah, and I think that's pretty cool because I'm putting stuff out there, not on TikTok. And then fellow therapists who are making referrals to me. And I feel so honored when, like a therapist is like, hey, I'm sending a client that's going to be a good fit for you, that they know me well enough and my niche and my ideal clients, because we have conversations and connections, and it's authentic connections. It's not cold calling Instagram style. I despise it. Like, I don't like LinkedIn, for example. I was I'm going down a rabbit trail. I was in Barnes and Noble, and someone had said, hey, do you take referrals? We have an abundance. They didn't use the word abundance. I'm changing it up a little bit. We have an abundance of clients and we're looking for therapists to refer to. And I was like, oh, that's great. Like and they're like, how soon can you get clients in? And I was like, well, it depends if I would take the referral or not, because what are the focus areas that y'all are looking to refer to? Because I want to make them sure I'm a good match. This turned out to be a cold call. And I was like, are you marketing a product, or are you looking for a genuine person or therapist to make these referrals to? It took a minute for them to respond. It was a product. And I'm like, I don't got time for this. If I want something, I will seek you out. Like, don't cold call me on Instagram. So yeah, that's my thing. It perturbs me.
Yeah. I noticed that, like, so I have my website out and I get emails to my therapy in motion email. And it's like people, I don't even know if it's people or bots at this point. Like, initially I thought it was people, because it was like, hey, I know that you have your resources page, and they give you information, like, could you
Yes.
share it?
Yes.
And like for some time I was doing that, and then I realizing the titles are the same. Like, what? So now I don't know, like, do I continue adding things? Because if they're resources, they're resources. But now I'm like, why?
They're from my experience, they're bots. And I get every week probably a handful of people reaching out to put their stuff on my resource page. Absolutely not. I just ignore them. I don't even respond to them. I might, like, I won't even click on the links because it can be like a scam or a phishing kind of thing, right? And so, like, I'll Google the place, because sometimes it might be a really like true intent, good intent. So I'll Google the place, and if it doesn't fit within my values or what, like what I would feel good about referring one of my clients to, absolutely not. It's not going on my page. So I actually thought about just taking my resource page off. So
yeah, at least one of the other trainees or current second years in the program that I graduated from had reached out to me saying, hey, I know you have what did they say? Like a buttload of resources. Can you send me the link to your website? Okay. So that makes me like, I don't want to just take it off, because obviously it's helpful, but at the same time, yeah, like you're saying, I don't know.
What might be helpful is if I'm going to take my resource page down, maybe get like a PDF so that I can just send it to my clients, so that I'm not losing those resources. Yeah. Another thing is, we talked about it briefly, it's like track your successes. And as you're tinkering with your website, if there's like something like you're learning, like looking at your website with fresh eyes, or have colleagues look at your website, could be good, because they can provide a lot of feedback, and look at it as growth points where you can like adapt and learn. I listen to podcasts all the time. I'm like, oh, I didn't think about doing that. Oh, yay. But I love learning. And so I'm always adapting things too. So community speaking engagements could be another, now that we're like out, and I think we're still in the pandemic. Are we? I don't know, but people are starting to mingle together, and it was kind of like a wake up from coming back from Japan, where we're still wearing masks in Japan. And then it's like, oh, okay. Like, I guess I can not have my mask I guess. But people are starting to get together and they're just like, whatever, we're just going to meet, right? But there's still people that choose to wear the mask, and that's completely fine, personal choice, right? But community speaking engagements could be another source that could be tapped into, especially if it's something that you're really passionate about. What's some of the groups that you're teaching right now, like the different topic areas?
You need to repeat that question. My brain just
Shut off.
oh, yeah. Well, there's the blooper.
Okay. Okay, here's a question. If you walked into a room and you did not know that you were supposed to be presenting on a topic today, what can you teach on or train on for 30 minutes without having any preparation that you love? What would that be?
Acceptance and commitment therapy, self-care, self-compassion, and how to navigate social media.
Okay. So how can you use those topics within the community, and what sources would you contact in order to be able to run those groups or those trainings? Like what groups would benefit from those kind of trainings?
All humans. I mean, at least to an extent, but perfectionists.
Okay. And where would you find perfectionists in society?
In the performing arts world, sports world, tech world,
Okay.
anywhere that's got nothing but pressure to be the best and then some, better than the best.
Okay. Okay. So there's some possible ideal clients I'm hearing too, right? And so if you are able to devote some of your time towards marketing your skills and being able to do it for the goodness of the community, right? Any potential clients that come through that are just cherries on top, right? Because if you're speaking from your flow zone, where you're like really awoken and alive and ignited, then that's going to be like contagious for the people who are in the group. So if you're like training on something that you're not fully in, you're going to have a whole other effect. So you have to show up as your authentic self. You have to do what works best for you and you feel good about. So pay attention when you're like on Instagram and posting. Does this feel authentic to you? If you're doing a YouTube video and like spreading the goodness, do you feel like you're in your flow zone, genius zone, right? So yeah, so there's something there. Another thing is offering courses and trainings, because you can develop trainings like on Teachable or, oh gosh, what are the other ones? There's a couple other platforms. Kajabi, I think, is one of them. That might be wrong, but there's different platforms you can develop courses on, like on self-esteem or self-compassion, and you can promote them on social media, on Instagram, and build community that way. And a lot of you have to like earn their trust before they're willing to like reach out, like, oh, this spoke to me. And it has to be like usually multiple times unless it's really captivating. So there's another thing. Another thing is, this feels very like cold call-y to me, is having email lists. So you give away a free product and being helpful. So it has to be good intent. And then while the people are getting that free product, they can like opt in to getting emails. And then from that email list, you can be sending blog posts or like newsletters. But I haven't really gone that path because it doesn't feel good to me. It may work completely and wonderfully for others though, so no judgments whatsoever. Usually what I find is when I sign up for a free product, you get bombarded by all these lists, and there's some really good ones, like, well, I don't want to say anyone, but there's some really good ones that I actually enjoy getting. But usually like I do a filter on my Gmail and I do unsubscribe so that I don't even see them, because you just get bombarded, your email fills up, and email is like torturous for me. So, yeah. Okay. What are your questions?
I lost them.
Oh no.
Hold on. Let's see. What were we talking about? We were talking about you. You know what? I think I lost them because you answered it without even me having to ask.
That's my intuitive empath.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Let's see. with the niche slash ideal client, like the writing, I guess we kind of just did the exercise of how to create that now, like in real time, right? Like if you had to go into a talk that you were not prepared for, you have to give a talk for 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
What would it be on, and where would you even be giving that talk? Like, where do you feel like you even have any business showing up for that matter? That was super helpful.
Did you have this light bulb moment? Like, oh,
Yeah,
just it kind of like externalized it so you weren't caught up in it. That tricky therapist rephrasing the question.
I know. You got me. Yeah, well, and it was what jumped out was like, okay, what groups do I lead at the IOP PHP ED program? Because I love all the groups that I lead. And it was basically those. Like, yeah, I could totally do these like as individuals or give talks on them.
Yeah.
So because they're what, like each week is about an hour group, 50 to 55 minutes, because I like having breaks in between my stuff. So I give them breaks mainly for me, but you know, everybody benefits. Yeah. So I feel like I easily have enough material to just walk in with like, all right, this is the topic, let's go. Because even, especially if I have access to technology, I can share my screen, like I know exactly what to pull up, what exercises, let's just go and do this now and process and discuss.
Do you feel on fire? Do you feel like alive when you're teaching the groups? Do you feel like the conversation, is it interactive, or is it more like facilitator focused, or is it more like audience together?
So everybody there seems to have a different style, or maybe like it depends on like the groups, like maybe CBT or DBT groups require, or not require, but like it makes more sense for those to be more like facilitator psychoeducation-y focused. And I know that we have like, as part of the programs, there are specific process groups, but I feel like I kind of gear all of mine as like process groups. Like obviously there's a topic, there is some psychoeducation, but I always make time to discuss. And I don't necessarily call people out, but like, you know, giving people the opportunity to share. Like, so rather than just, all right, who wants to say something? Like, I want to hear from everybody, at least, you know, everybody's welcome to pass, of course, but I know there are a couple people in those groups or in the programs that have social anxiety and they won't speak unless they're called on. But when they do speak, they love it and they have really good insight to share. So it's that collaboration. And then also I've learned stuff from those groups too, like especially my self-care behavioral activation group. Like we were talking about, you know, how do you reward yourself, right? For when you're like trying to build a habit or adding something into your routine. And one of the clients was the one that brought up like, oh, I like put a smiley face or a star on my calendar every day that I do something, whatever it is that she's trying to add.
Dopamine rise.
So and I started doing it.
Yeah. I think that is like beautiful when those things happen, because it's fellow humans coming together in an exchange of ideas.
What I was thinking of, like, as you were talking about like how I lead the groups, and is it like collaborative or processy or facilitator focused? Like I love collaboration, and I think that might be also something that we could add into the niche, whatever, English/French, an ideal client. Like I want to be collaborative. I don't want to be the only one doing the work. That's not helpful, at least from my perspective of how therapy works.
The way you write your bio is going to show that you're collaborative. I wrote a bio today and was like, I'm a nerd therapist. Like, I think I wrote something like, and I was just writing, and it was like, the prompt was, what led you into therapy, to being a therapist? And I wrote something to the effect, it was a whole bunch, but it was like, and that's another thing, you want to write very concisely too, so that they don't get bogged down in it. As a former teacher, I found that I was focusing more on the well-being of my students versus the academic pursuits and the social constructs of a one-size-fits-all box. And, you know, and that's just me speaking authentically, because the clients get to know your personality and you and the orientation. And I ask clients when I talk to them on the phone, I'm like, when you walk into therapy, what do you imagine it to be? And what they say will give me clues if I'm going to be a good fit for them or not. Because if they want all like homework, homework's a bad word for me, activities. If they want like worksheets, yeah, I might give some occasionally, but it's definitely more collaborative discussion. It's like when a client comes into the room, yes, I have like treatment goals that we have collaboratively designed together, but it's like a weaving of stories. So they bring what they're going to bring into the session, and then we weave it together. And it's like whatever they bring in, it becomes the fuel for the room. And we set out, and once I have my thread, we set out on a journey together. And each session is like an unfolding of the narrative. And I love that. And so, like, if I can translate that into my bio somehow, that might speak to that client. That my ideal client out there. So, yeah. What I was saying earlier is there's beauty in when a therapist is willing to learn from the client and vice versa. It's a collaborative effort, and it's two minds or more coming together for the benefit of the client. So I think there's definite beauty in that. Yes. All right. I think that's all we're going to cover today. I mean, there's so much more we could talk about with marketing, but hopefully that was helpful to some people. Hopefully that was helpful to you. At least you got one light bulb from today.
Now I gotta go update my bio, and I'm gonna send you my website so that you can look at it as you suggested it would be beneficial to.
That's fine. I do that all the time. I will say I'll give a shout out to Amber Lyda with Online Therapist Group. When I first was doing telehealth back in 2017, she was extremely helpful with giving out resources with good intent. And she is an email list that I stay on, and I actually like read when she sends it out. So not all email lists are bad. It's just, it depends on what's the intention behind it. So, but yeah, I'd be happy to read your bio and give feedback. So yeah, but do it for you. Do what works for you, what feels good, and pay attention to the people that are coming and finding you because of it. If you'd like to hear more, please do not forget to like and subscribe on your favorite platform.
You can learn more about us at therapistoffscript.com or by visiting us on Instagram at therapistoffscript.
We welcome connections, comments, and feedback,
or to simply say hi,
by engaging with us on Instagram or through our website.
Thanks for spending time with us today, where we dive deep, join together, and empower others. We are Therapists Off Script.
Be sure to check out our show notes for links and resources shared within this episode. Oh my gosh, it's like we coordinated. I got stripes going this way, you got stripes going that way. We did not plan this.
Nope. And actually, well, I took it off because it was giving me a headache, but I was wearing a headbandy thing. Yeah. But I had to take it off because it was giving me a headache.
It would have surprised me if we showed up and we were wearing the same outfits. So.
Right? You know what? It's probably only a matter of time.
Yeah.
So that is what happened.
Well, we're recording episode 11. So yeah, so the probability of it happening is very high, I believe. So,
that is true.
Especially if we get merch.
True. When, correct?
Yeah, like I'm all about the merchandise and wearing, like, especially when it's still chilly out, to have like a hoodie. I know you're all about the tank tops. We've talked about that.
But I like hoodies too.
Yeah.
I will wear all the things.
Yeah, that's why I'm here, is for the merchandise. So I felt scattered today.
But you know what? Like, I think that's kind of important for our brand, being our authentic selves. Like, we're not rehearsed.
Yeah.
What came up organically, probably more organically than any of the other previous podcast topics.
Yeah. Like, as I'm talking, I had like that out of body, like trying to catch what I was trying to say happening. And hopefully I made enough sense that it looped back around, but I was definitely like having difficulty tonight. So